You heard right. I'm saying it. Arc Raiders is the true successor to The Last of Us, to the Dark Zone version of The Division, the original Dark Zone, and SOCOM. Yeah, I'ma prove it to you, but really, in my opinion, but the game blends all three of those games, some of their best elements together. And for years we've been looking for a game with brutal high stakes survival like The Last of Us, the unmatched PvPvE tension of that Dark Zone in The Division, and then the third person methodical tactical shooter known as SOCOM. A lot of you may not have even gotten to play that, but it was a great game. The last great SOCOM was Confrontation. The SOCOM DNA portion of it, let's just start. I played the Service Land. I'm telling you, Arc Raiders, it's the one. Let's start with the gameplay. This isn't just a mindless shooter, run and gun style. It's a third-person tactical shooter. That's a key distinction, and a lot of people may not call it tactical, but it is, because you have to think in this game before you make moves. Otherwise, you're gonna have bad runs, or you won't get valuable loot, because I'll take it from you. So it's being third-person anyway at its core. A lot of people like first-person, but third-person is my favorite type of shooter. Some people say peeking is a cheap mechanic. It's not. It's just a core mechanic. It's a core mechanic of third person. Holding corners, gathering intel before you commit to something. First person has a different style of play, and I've played first person my whole life, so nothing wrong with it. But man, can you guys just be happy we got a great third person shooter? Everything doesn't have to be first person. It's the teamwork in this game, it's also kind of what reminds me of SOCOM, because the better your teamwork is in those raid runs, especially when it comes to the Arc and having to deal with the Raiders, communication is key, and it feels good, just to not be playing. We playing multiplayer games to work together, so that just feels good. Then there's The Last of Us. I mentioned that in the title because it does. Both in the single player atmosphere and the multiplayer. If you played the multiplayer, man, it was some of the best multiplayer I've played. I really can't believe they didn't do anything with factions. They really underestimated, I think. I don't care what that data said. If they would have made that faction, they would have got play. They would have got a lot of play. But that's neither here nor there. Just the atmosphere of it, with the clickers, the Arc remind me, kind of that just that feeling of like, man, these things can kill you very quickly. Some of them anyway, like the Bomber, obviously, and the Bastions, the Leaper, they will kill you very quickly. Things can go downhill very quickly, even if you are stacked. If you don't do the right things and take into account your environment, where you might have to run to, the other raiders, it just creates because that AI threat is just so real, it changes how you play. It forces you into brutal close quarter situations a lot of the times, because the big ones are outside and the smaller ones are inside, but also inside usually are raiders. So when we go in to fight, you gotta worry, man, we're gonna attract more Arc. Now once you get super geared and once you figure out how to play, it becomes a little bit easier to deal with the Arc plus the players. But as long as you're quick, and the secret is, once you take them Arc out, you get out of that little area, because eventually some gonna come, and then eventually you could get overwhelmed if you guys don't have the awareness and the ammo to continue to take them out. Every resource is precious. In The Last of Us multiplayer, it wasn't like there was a lot of hills to go around. You had to kind of find it within the match, and that's the same way here. This is a bigger version of that, bigger scale. I really can't believe they didn't make factions. I'll say that again. So it's just, creates that survival aspect of it as well. And then the Dark Zone. the dark zone, the extraction tension, the DNA. It's all there. This is what brings it all together, you know? The tactical combat of SOCOM, the AI threat, The Last of Us, all get thrown into the pressure of the dark zones, the Division's dark zone, you know? The extraction is the entire point. You can win fights, you can kill bosses, you can get loot, but it means nothing if you don't get out of there alive. You know what I mean? That is what the dark zone was. So, you know, you could have a bunch of yellow gear, but if you didn't make it out, you know, and I'm really talking about at the start, man, when loot was valuable to us, you know, it was kind of new. Before, you know, everybody got overpowered, and then there were certain builds that, you know, everybody started meta, which is, you know, it happens, whatever. But that's the entire point, man. You know, you're doing all that stuff, and that creates the excitement. You know, if you extracting, the extractions are public, they're loud, like everybody knows. You know, it's very, if you're in the vicinity, you know, that little girl behind elevator coming up, you know, you hear yelling it out, and then you gotta hide for a little bit, and then usually that summons some arc. So it just, it was consistently creating dynamic situations. You know, every time I extracted, I felt the tension, even sometimes when nothing would happen, because the tension was so real, you know. Some raiders camp it, you know, you got others pulling up, but you're still cautious because of the raiders that shoot on sight, you know, and some people just of that mindset, I'm gonna shoot first. I know me and my partner had to tell them, like, hey man, we ain't shooting at everybody. Like, listen, you know, guys trying to get out of here alive, because he just wanna shoot at everybody. But then as time went on, you know, he understood it is a part of the game, and you really should approach the game a little differently. I feel like it definitely adds to the fun. I believe it's competitive in its own right. Obviously, it won't be, you know, it's not CSGO, but hey, listen, man, us older players, we ain't got time for this. You know, we ain't got time for the stuff where you have to put, you have to essentially keep training your wheels in order to keep up, you know. So, man, this game, it creates those unforgettable moments, man. So, every player you see, you know, you don't know, you know, and if you follow the social medias a little bit, you know, on Discord, some people really do want to try and team up. On Reddit, you know, you could read different things. You know, it's really mixed, and in the server slam, I've really had people that would talk. Some people, you know, would shoot on sight. Obviously, I believe that was the most common occurrence. However, it was definitely more than a few, you know, times where, you know, we started fighting and somebody said, hey, you know, we ain't trying to do that. And we'll team up, or we'll at least let them pass, or vice versa, you know. So, yeah, I think this game's gonna be good, man. And I didn't get to play any other maps. I know a lot of people were disappointed with that, but I was good with it, you know. We don't have too long of a wait, and when October 30th hits, we all gonna be in there. And I didn't say, you know, I just been scrolling around YouTube watching everybody, and I've seen some older players, man. Shout out to y'all. I think we can definitely create a fun atmosphere within the game. It's definitely enough of us, and I see what's out there. You know, this might be a more mature player base, but I think all three of those, you know, things really, those games and the gameplay elements within them, you know, being blended into one extraction shooter. I think it's gonna be the first game to successfully really do it. And it's third person with terrifying AI and survival dread like The Last of Us, all wrapped in a heart-pounding, high-stakes PvPvE loop like the Dark Zone. I think this is the true successor as SOCOM fans have been waiting for. Let me know in the comments if you agree. What other games does this remind you of? Subscribe to me for more Arc Raiders content. I'll be doing a lot of different content in the future, man. Just starting out, throwing it out there. I see a lot of different type of content being thrown out. A I'm excited to collab with a few folks. Yeah, appreciate you showing up, man. Enjoy. I'll be putting out more content very, very soon. So subscribe to be notified.